chapter 16, verse 25. Salvation is believing and confessing God's work. And this is one of the simple gospel presentations Paul made to the Philippian jailer. Verse 25, at midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. What were they doing? They were praying, verse 25, and singing hymns. And look what it says. Singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. And the earthquake came. And verse 27, the keeper of the prison, awaking from sleep, seeing the prison doors open. Do you understand? This was his house. And all of a sudden, he gets knocked out of bed, and he looks down, and he sees the prison doors open, verse 27. He thought the prisoners had fled. He drew his sword. Was he about to kill himself? In verse 28, Paul cried with a loud voice. See, Paul's in his house. And it wasn't just the prisoners, I think, that were listening to Paul. This jailer was amazed. This guy didn't spit and curse at him while he got the beating. And the jailer, I'm sure, is the one that oversaw Paul getting put in the stocks where they distend your body and your feet. And Roman stocks, they had this abdominal thing kind of like that kept you from, it made your feet extended and your arms extended. It's kind of being in an unnatural horseshoe-shaped position, which was as your body began to heal or coagulate and scabs were formed. Then when you stood up, it just broke open all the beating again. It was kind of like a little additional suffering. And the jailer had watched all this, and he had heard, but he didn't know what to do. So Paul cried with a loud voice, said, "Don't do your harm, we're here." And then he, the jailer, called for a light, verse 29, ran in, fell down trembling before Paul and Silas, and brought them out and said, "Sirs, what must I do to be saved?" That's one of the most beautiful salvation accounts in the Bible. And what did Paul say? Believe, verse 31. So they said, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and you will be saved, you and your household. And look at verse 34. It says, and he rejoiced, the end of verse 34, having believed in God with all his household. What did they believe? Well, they declared at their baptism, Paul baptized them. They believed that Christ gave them a heart that's new. That jailer said, Christ gave me a new heart. Can you imagine the testimony service at the Philippi church? They say, anybody have a testimony? And this big Roman, sword-toting magistrate gets up, this jailer. He said, I was laying in bed. I had these crazies in my basement. They were singing. And I had beaten them within a thread of life. And an earthquake came. And I was going to commit suicide. And I ran in and saw them, and I slid at their feet, and I said, how can I be saved? And they explained, the one who died to give me a heart that's new, who buried all of my past in his paganism and his sin, his whatever, and gave me a fresh new beginning, and he ended all my guilt because my sins are on him, and I have nothing left to fear. Can you imagine the jolt that went through that congregation as they saw the miracle of salvation, a pagan who came to Christ?